Hi everyone. Okay, I've been updating, my files, administrative work. It does take a lot of time and I haven't gotten any research done today. But I was listening because I listen to the right and the left. I listen to everything and everyone. And there are grains of truth, and then people take it off into their alt right or alt left arena. And after Megyn Kelly, the whole Ailes affair with Megyn Kelly, I did try and contact Megyn Kelly because she is she is a lawyer. She is has the credentials to do what needs to be done, and just submitting the cases that I've been preparing. Okay, I haven't gotten through to her. So, when I haven't gotten through, either through an address, that I find in the white pages or anywhere else, and it comes back undeliverable, well, you can't hold those people accountable because I have tried her husband. What is it? Brunt, I think his name is. He has a LinkedIn account. I tried to connect there. He did have some ways of connecting, but this is again where, yes, well, women, if you want to go out in the workplace and your husband stays home, he better learn about the social networking of the socialite ladies, because that's the role he's playing. It's not just nanny. So, whatever. However, the thing is I posted a comment because this it's called Sexual Harassment Allegation against Chris Cuomo and a woke push to eliminate biological sex. Now, she makes a lot of good points. I'm not going to play the whole thing. I'll play the beginning. But she makes a lot of good points. However, it's all just more, rhetoric and blah, 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 adding to the cacophony with no action. So, unfortunately, the comment that I posted was deleted. There was another one I was listening to. Oh, I forget now. Because I listen to a lot of these things during the day. As I say, right, left. Sometimes when I need to laugh, I'll put Bill Maher on. It remains political, but at least I sit there and just laugh. But he's alt left. I have to say, I agree with a lot of things that he has to say. I even challenged him one time on his website. I said, you stick me on a podium with Bill Maher, and I bet you I could turn him from an atheist into at least a agnostic who's not a believer. And when I challenge somebody, I'll put my money where my mouth is. I don't have any money, right? It's my reputation that's on the line. But I could do it. If I say I can do something, I can do it. If I can't do it, I'll tell you I can't do it. I got no problem with that. So let's see. Get this on here. I won't get blocked for copyright. My channel is non-monetized, so they do copyright, but oh wait, let me read this. I did want to read the comment that I was going to post, or that I posted and was deleted. That's what pissed me off. So actually, I had added on to this thing because I had copied it in a notepad, but this is the essential. So what I sent was a little bit more detailed, but so why are these types of cases like Cuomo, Chris Cuomo? This is really ridiculous, really. Well, there's so many problems. I mean, just look at my, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, Kilborn House, and what I'm putting up with, because none of these women's rights lawyers will go, it's all about fame and fortune. And if it's a high profile case, political motivations or financial motivations. Other than that, the rest of the women in this world can go and screw themselves and their children. So why are these types of cases given such coverage by the press? Yet for the past 6 years, lawyers and the press have been covering up by their omission of action to act to the rampant problems of couch casting and rampant internal mismanagement in the International Monetary Fund, IMF. I post the link to the evidence and the proof of the complaint that I filed. Now, Meghan Kelly is attacking the activists because, their links, there's no meat and potatoes there. You go to every single link, everything that I do, there's meat and potatoes. And I mean, this gets into calculus derivative stuff. Not 1 + 1 = 2. After 15 years, we're not even talking algebra, we're talking calculus. I mean, we really need a computer beta challenge, big data, to sift through all the crap that's out there, but it's on the internet. As I say, I've documented everything that I say is backed up by the research, the evidence, the proof. Now, if all of this stuff was false, why has nobody for the past 30 years? I mean, when I got into the game, it had already been going on. If it's untrue, what everybody up and top is saying, then why haven't anybody been sued for libel? So I have to assume that reports by the domestic violence industry, the human rights industry, the IMF, the World Bank, the UN, etc., State Department, everybody's writing reports, that these things are true. And is the evidence? Why is everybody ignoring it? So for 15 years, I've been preparing case after case, including my own Wilcox versus Spain and Wilcox versus USA for the International Courts on Violence Against Women as Human Rights Violation, which challenges the defense of the American government in Gonzalez-Linehan versus USA 2011 Inter-American Commission on Human Rights and Gonzalez-Carreño versus Spain 2014 CEDA. So I got this one down. And while all the big-wig human rights lawyers, including Carrie Bettinger Lopez, Biden's advisor to the White House on VAW, violence against women, just love my work and argumentation, no one will submit, including big-wig Baltasar Garzón, champion of universal jurisdiction. See all the proof and evidence which debunks the propaganda in the press about domestic violence and the supposed assistance of women and children given by the DV experts, shelters, lawyers, courts, and everyone else in the game, posted on www.warondomesticterrorism.com and Taking Back for America. It's a Wix account. I don't have enough money for a domain right now. So it's under Gwen B. Wilcox 2.wixsite.com, Taking Back America. That's how poor I am. I'm cutting down everywhere I can. They want to shut me up. They want to cancel me. They want to marginalize me. God's provided in the past. For the past 7 years, I have been on the committee of family court reform activists to reach the press. And the interim years, I have been racking up more and more evidence against those in the press who have refused to expose these issues. If my message, my subliminal message, because this is how women talk. You know, we're not like men that you mess with me, I'll take you and beat you to a pulp. We are much more, particularly the ruling elite women. See, and this is where civilized society comes in. You make more than certain your adversary knows, and diplomacy knows, I'm willing to be friends, but I'm not willing to sell my soul. So if you want to be friends in addressing these issues, I'm certainly open. The door is open. However, if you want to be a foe and you want to shut me up, well, but a whole other ballgame. You know, the ruling elite Americans particularly, really, it really is embarrassing how everybody's just out for money, 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 fame, and fortune. So, you know, obviously, nobody understood my subliminal message there. Evidence against those in the press who have refused to expose these issues. So you guys want to jump on board, get on my little choo-choo train for the international courts. Thank you very much. When the Boston Globe broke the story about the sexual molestation of children and women by Catholic priests, the victims and activists had hope the press would expose the same problems in family courts, who are handing over 70% of sexually and physically abused children to the abuser. And if the abuser is only psychologically abusing the victim, the rate drops down to 90%. This is our democracy and Bill of Rights and all the hypocrisy that's out there. All I'm doing, I mean, as I say, these are reports. All of my information has come from all of the experts in these domains. Domestic violence, women's rights, international development community. I mean, I'm all over the map. Academia. So, you know, if I'm crazy, why aren't you going after these people? Because those are the ones who are dispersing all of this information and have been for 50, 60 years, some of them, through books, their speeches, their teachings in universities. So the culmination of all of that is to be silenced. I need explanations why. The BS myth that women are favored in the courts during the divorce is bullshit. I take out the I and I put a star so they can't get me on swearing because I didn't use a swear word. Technically, well, come on, I can pull out that. Well, technically, it wasn't a swear word card on this type of stuff. When you guys are pulling all the rest of the crap. And those espousing this lie. I mean, I use frickin' now, which I hope everyone understands is a polite form. You know, I have never been somebody who swears indiscriminately, but I'm not afraid of using a swear word when it is appropriate. And it's appropriate all over this town these days. I mean, one of my big beefs with the Spaniards is every sentence starts in joder and ends in coño. Marta Hernandez at GW. I said, you keep on saying this word coño, coño, coño. What does that mean? She said, oh, it means nothing. It means nothing. I later found out what I meant, and I knew why she kept on saying it means nothing. It means nothing. Because a lot, much less in South America, it depends on the country. The Colombians, particularly the Bogotanos, you don't hear them speaking like that. So, BS myth that women are favored in courts during the divorce is BS. And those espousing this lie are putting the many victims with casualty and death tolls mounting daily at great risk. If all women should be believed, why are the same women's rights lawyers taking the high-profile cases against the high-power men, Weinstein, Ailes, Epstein, Prince Andrew, and Governor Cuomo, to the courts? Question mark, question mark. If these lawyers, including Gloria Allred, were really concerned with women's and children's rights, they would have submitted the cases I have prepared for the international courts, which opens the doors for litigation against perps in the courts, as much as the abusers being aided and abetted by everyone. At national levels with justice and damages for the victims. You go down that road, you clean this thing up. Of course, that less jobs for lawyers, less jobs for journalists, less jobs for everybody who's raking in money, less jobs for these experts, and lawyers would be making as much, if not more money, if they assisted in cleaning up broken courts, caused in part by the 60-year failed war on drugs, like its predecessor, Prohibition. So it begs the question of why, for 15 years, and everyone up to God himself agreeing with my legal argumentation and preparing and package up the cases, has refused to assist and submit. These are questions I want answers to, particularly given the attacks on Chris and Governor Cuomo. See my YouTube, postings. And those on Prince Charles for BS. Bullshit. Post that link. Why every day untold thousands, if not millions, of women and children are being beaten, raped, and murdered, with the courts and authorities up and down the chain of command covering it up, thereby becoming accessories to these crimes against humanity, Article 7 of the Rome Statutes. Again, a subliminal message. Unfortunate for everyone in DC, their ignore her till she goes away game and cancellation of me because I am not popular and liked, particularly by the Foxcroft crowd. Post the link to my letter to Foxcroft, head of school and board of trustees, have implicated just about the entire city in violations under Racketeer Influence Corrupt Organization Act, RICO, Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, FCPA, and the Patriot Act, with Juan Williams, one of the press bigwig, included. I love this story. If Juan Williams had been more interested in my research and work on the founding father, John Dickinson, penman of the Revolution, and John Paul Jones, both of whom are in my family tree, instead of finding out if the ring on my left hand finger was a wedding band, get the picture? Then he might have actually learned something. The 5 is, for me, the 5 is a right extremist version of The View. I'd love to get all of those people on a podium together. Would that be a comedy show? I do have a little bit of sadistic thoughts sometimes. Back in the 1980s, I never had to sleep with anyone to get a job, even though I worked on Capitol Hill and high power restos and restaurants and nightclubs while attending GW, as well as in the financial markets after graduating. However, the first headhunter I met with, well, actually, this I did add a little thing in there, as I say, they deleted it. I had, closed it before they delete it, and this is just whatever. It should be in the tracking of their records. I mean, all of that stuff is kept on these websites. So, but I had added in a thing about, I mean, this whole thing about touching, and I mean, if these little girls had really had to work and work their way through school in the real world, like at high power restaurants and nightclubs and discotheques, particularly in the 80s, well, although it's not, the sabores have changed. Oh, the whole frat house bullshit hasn't. So I put in there, and I always say, you know what? Anybody, you make it very, very clear. I mean, ladies, you want to get into the big bad world, you got to be able to mark your territory and stand your ground. Ooh. And it only took me one time. You touch me, you bump me. I mean, this was the bumping, but everybody knew by that time I had no problem. If this thing's coming down, it's going to come down on your head. And if you are touching me inappropriately, it'll come down on your head as well. Oops. Just like stiletto heels. However, 2 and 3 inch is more than sufficient, and just a discreet little and to their shoe, they get the message. Of all the ladies out there started sending some really strong messages to these men of your hands go where they shouldn't be going, or any of that stuff, I can take care of myself. And we little ladies have discreet ways. I mean, some woman who sticks her high heel into your shoe in a public place, you're going to think twice about, punching her or tolerating her against her when there's good cause. And it'll call attention. Yeah, well, my heel slipped just like his hand. But I mean, it's incredible. I mean, I was thrown out on the streets when I was 19. I packed my bags with no money and moved to France. I made my way in the world every single second. And you women also have to stop sending out a message of, yeah, anyone or anything, until the moment that I decide no. I never, well, see, coming back to DC, most of my cases against for sexual harassment are against women. Almost all of them, well, except in this house. Women. And I know, women can't sexually harass another woman. Wait until I get you in court on that one. International conventions, constitutions, penal and civil codes, chew you up and spit you out. And that's why I think, these things are being deleted, because everybody's afraid of giving me a voice and letting me into the discussion, because they know I will chew them up and spit them out. So the first headhunter I met in 2009 upon my return to the DC and the USA and labor markets after having opted out for 20 years to raise a family and build my husband's career, which does not make me a submissive or brain dead, told me that she would never find me a job because anyone interviewing me would be afraid that in 6 months I would have their job. This has been the case time after time, with me barely able to find minimum wage jobs and passed over continually for promotions. I mean, I love it. With the IMF, I show him I could do a better job than the managing director of the IMF, as well as you got in there, president of the World Bank. And you guys won't even give me anything more than a floater job because I'm a brain dead bimbo. I'm really gonna bite you. Look at Einstein Wikipedia profile. Played the same games with Einstein. And in my experience with algebra and geometry is very similar to Einstein. I am no dumb bimbo and never have been. That's why everybody always wants to hates me so much. Even my siblings and my mother. Just like with my father. This jealousy has got to stop. It's ridiculous. So, unfortunately for those, yeah, this has been the case time and time, with me barely able to find minimum wage jobs and passed over continually for promotions And since the COVID shutdown, I've been destitute, unemployed, and headed for a tent on the street, as my landlord promised he would do when the shutdown happened, because I stand up to him. And yeah, I'm going to challenge you on everything that's going on here, just like everybody else in Washington since I've been back, and why everybody keeps on trying to destroy me and silence me. And as I say, I'm putting together my evidence. I'm putting together my proof. I hope you guys are doing your due diligence, because Ethel Kennedy, you play to win. So do I. You met your match. And your daughter, Carrie, better start waking up and smelling the coffee, because she's going to take the fall by the time this works its way through the courts. I don't think Ethel Kennedy will probably have passed, but Carrie will still be around, as will Caroline and the rest of the Kennedy family, as will Meghan Kelly and a whole slew of other people, whose names I've collected. Everybody wants to play hardball. We play hardball. Believe me, I don't play Machiavellian games with anybody. I don't play hardball with anybody of good faith. Never. But you play it with me, and I have one rule, and one rule only. We play by your rules. You want to play dirty? You want to put all of this gobbledygook ideologies and rhetoric, which really challenge the fundamentals of the legal system for the past 400 years. Well, excuse me, 4,000. This started long process. They could have gone a lot faster, like everybody else. But this started with the fundamentals of Jesus Christ and Muhammad. I mean, within the East. And they're basically about the same time, what is Muhammad? 52 years. Fact checking. But Muhammad is slightly before Jesus Christ. I know that. As I say, if I don't know my facts, I say, I think it's this date. I think it's that date. It's about this time. It's about that time. My brain can only retain so many facts at one time, and that's why I love Google. I'm like, let me fact check this. So unfortunately, for those who wish to silence me and my dissent over the rampant corruption and chaos in DC, their games have backfired, because all of these game players have set themselves up for a fall under RICO, Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, and the Patriot Act. Why don't you cover these and other stories I have exposed in my investigative reporting and preparations for a grand jury of all grand jury investigations, and to Tinseltown, USA? All the proof and evidence is posted on my activism website, for the world to see free of charge. Now, this was deleted. I don't understand where I'm saying anything that violates rules. I mean, my Lord, you have so much out there that is espousing all sorts of propaganda and lies. And then in the next video, as I say, I forget, I was in the kitchen and listening to it. So I don't remember exactly. Wait a second, let me go into my history. As I say, I listen into all of this. It was the tech censorship, media malpractice, and woke icons. This is a Meghan Kelly one with Victor Davis Hanson, John Stossel, and Ben Smith. And I also posted, I mean, it was much shorter. Again, you know, I was downstairs, I was in the kitchen, I posted something and deleted, because the alt-right, as much as the alt-left, do not like me and do not like what I have to say. These are freedom of speech issues. And particularly with this tech censorship stuff, Megyn Kelly was really getting into that. Now, how can she criticize others for censorship and promoting extremism rhetoric when she's guilty of the same thing? Because by silencing my comment, which again, I want explanations about where I crossed the line in terms of what I can post. I've been doing this for 15 years. And everybody just, you know, deletes it. 15 years ago, it was bad. Now, 2010, with all of these platforms, it's improved because the platforms aren't so restrictive. But it's introduced so much more cacophony that the question is mute, because there's so much out there. You can post the truth as much as you want, and you know, 10% of the time, maybe. Well, no, it's, I don't know. It goes like that. I guess I would have to pull statistics. We'd have to get all of the records, because I know there is a trace even of things. I've seen that going back to before 2010, stuff that I had posted at the very beginning, and there was like, that I know had been deleted, but there was like this shadow software that these guys had come out with that grabbed that stuff. So that information is in the system somewhere, even if it's deleted. Yeah. Can they destroy their files? That gets out of my capacity as in technology. I'll leave that for the forensic techie guys. But you know, I'm like, okay. You know, we'll see where this goes. So I'm not going to play the whole thing, but I do want to just highlight a couple of things, because this also is the Chris Cuomo.
Hey everyone, I'm Megyn Kelly. Welcome to the Megyn Kelly Show. We have a big show for you today. Just a bit later, we're going to be joined by Katie Herzog. She's back with us to talk about some of her latest reporting on how woke ideology is spreading in the medical industry amongst MDs. That's not good.
That's a problem. I wanted everybody to hear that, but that's not the issue.
She's a former executive producer at ABC News and CBS News, who has publicly accused anchor Chris Cuomo of CNN of sexually harassing her during both of their time at ABC News. Shelley, great to have you here. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So I thought it was fascinating that you came out with this and in a New York Times op-ed and just were given the chance to tell your story. And I did wonder whether the New York Times was the first one you went to, or whether anybody else had passed on the opportunity to tell this story. Can I start with that?
Sure. I actually, earlier, a year before, thought, let me see what this looks like. And there was one of the magazines had a first person story that was very, very moving. And I contacted them and was in just a half a discussion. And then came all of the harassment against Asians. And I thought, this is not a time to talk about sexual harassment in the workplace. This is a time to talk about harassment of Asian people because of the pandemic. And so it was a very brief, and I said, I'm going to end this, this dialogue. I'm going to withdraw, everything, because I think there's a more important dialogue to have.
Yeah.
And that was just a very quick toe in the water. Nothing, I was, it was just sort of a, what do you think?
So how long were you his EP at ABC News?
Well, I was first he was a sort of a floating network correspondent. And so I was EP at Good Morning America for 5.5 years. And he came to ABC, I don't know what date, but somewhere in that time frame. So I put him on the air and assigned him stories out of a pool of correspondence. And he was a legal correspondent, so I had him, for instance, covering the Martha Stewart trial, if that gives you a time frame. Mm-hmm. And he was on Good Morning America quite a bit. And then in 2004, I took over Primetime Live. And when I took over Primetime Live, it had gone through a lot of ups and downs. It had been merged with 2020 and then unmerged with 2020. And it was, magazine shows were sort of shrinking and trying to redefine themselves. And I came into Primetime Live, and there were 4 anchors: Diane Sawyer, Cynthia McFadden, John Quinones, and Chris Cuomo.
Mm-hmm. So he was one of your anchors, and you were his executive producer for how long? A couple years?
No, it was about a little less than a year.
Okay. And what was his character like prior to the incident that we're going to get into? How did you, know him? What did you think of him?
Well, he was a former Fox guy. He was a Roger Ailes discovery, interestingly enough. And he came to ABC, and he had a big personality. He was, attractive looking on air, but he was, had the personality that we've seen of a frat boy. He was a guy's guy, called people buddy, and he was younger and arrogant. He knew it all and didn't want anybody. He didn't want anybody's advice. He didn't want anybody's direction, and he certainly didn't want anyone to touch the first draft of his script.
Mm-hmm. Right, and when you're at network television, they do. I mean, it's not like cable at all. Having worked in both industries, I can say the executive producers, the producers are much more involved in the final product at the broadcast level than on cable. And I'm not surprised to learn that even in the broadcast world, Mr. Chris Cuomo didn't think anybody should be touching his work. Even somebody who is a seasoned executive producer like you, there's a reason you ran GMA for almost 6 years. Okay, so that was the situation.
I was at ABC News for 17 years.
Yeah. Yep.
So, and you know,
Okay, I'm not going to go into the whole thing. Even one of the comments on there, because she really does go on. One of the comments in there of one of the ladies said, did she have a couple drinks before she got on here? Because she does ramble on, you know, if you want to listen to the whole thing. But obviously, you know, there are some personal, you know, because I've gotten this all the time everywhere that I've worked, that or in my activism work as well, I'm just taking the limelight. I'm just, no, you know, nobody else is taking the lead. I mean, I'm not saying that that's exactly what happened with Chris. I don't know him. I don't know really much about him except what I've read. As I said in my last video, when I was doing the family trees and I was looking at the Cuomo stuff, he's 15 years younger than his eldest sister. And what was it? 6 years younger than the youngest. So he's a little baby. He's the little baby of the family. 3 older sisters that span from 6 years old to 15 years old. 1 brother who's, I think, 3 years younger than his older sister. So as well, you know, he's what, 12 when this baby. So anybody who knows anything about family dynamics, particularly in a Latino family, the mamacitas are all over the freaking place. So not only the older sisters, it's the aunts and so you know, and you can tell by some of the photos, yeah, Chris Cuomo, he enjoys the spotlight, and he may be a bit arrogant, although this whole case, okay, he admits it. See, this is where a difference with Andrew Cuomo. Chris Cuomo says, yes, I did this and I acted inappropriately, and I sent an apology. He sent an apology to her husband, but also in that to her. So for me, I would have been like, well, okay, you know, you apologized. Thank you. And, you know, lessons learned. We all have lessons to learn. I mean, sometimes all of us make mistakes, particularly when we're young. So this happened a long time ago. And if people admit their mistakes and say, sorry, I bumped you, I tripped you, I you know, I inadvertently touched you, for me, in my book, that's give them a free pass. I'm not gonna give you rancorous against that. I mean, people who done me wrong, really, and keep on insisting that it's all in my head, there I got a problem. And I got a problem with the legal community, like these women, Meghan Kelly, who you know are sitting on all of this and deleting comments. I say we need to take this to the courts, and we need to get to the root of the problem, rather than just you know, discussing the problems. between all of these experts. And I'd also like to say, I mean, okay, one of the good things about being married is that it's a do not touch sign amongst men, if that is what the women choose. Because quite frankly, if you are married, you have that ring, and you are very clear to everybody, to the men, that am I speaking with you, it's not because of sexual interest here. I mean, I'm almost 60 years old, and I've never had a problem there. Now, of course, when I was single, and in fact, when I was working in nightclubs and restaurants, at a dime store, engagement ring, diamond engagement ring, I think it cost me $10. That I, people, oh, is that real? I'm like, of course it is. Which it wasn't, but it was, no. I'm not available. It's total lie, total lie. But I always pulled my engagement out ring and stuck it on when I was working. And I would just be like, no, I'm taken. And so it's a lot what messages women send. And I just can't even imagine any man that I ever worked with, ever, no matter how arrogant they were. And I mean, I had some who really, with some sexist verbal remarks. Oh, yeah. I mean, I had some of my coworkers going, I can't even believe you just said that to you. I'm like, guy's a prick. Karma will get him at the end. And I look through the profiles. I'm like, yeah, karma got them at the end. So what do I care? I mean, it's, God, if you take offense at every single little pick out there, particularly if you get into upper echelons of Machiavellian games, you won't survive. You'll need more than a couple of drinks. But if any man had ever walked up to me, and this is a bar situation as well, this is not in the office, is no longer, it was an inappropriate joke, okay, but he does that to me, I think I'd either grab his ass or grab his balls and say, you think that's appropriate? Well, I don't like your hands on my ass, so you can get them off right now. Oh, walked out of the screen. And I also would have been pissed off at my husband. Not exactly the same situation, but more discreet, but similar happened to me. And it wasn't my husband who said anything, it was a friend of his. And I'm sitting there going, this is totally inappropriate. I mean, it's at a dinner table. And as I say, it's my husband's friend who said something. And I was like, yeah, thank you. And where was my husband? So, I'm sorry. There needs to be a new discussion totally on this issue of where all these ladies are trying to take it. And of course, why my comment was deleted. But again, if I if I had a platter with drinks, it would have gone on his head, which I would have preferred rather than grabbing his ass or grabbing his ball. I'd probably grab his ass because that's like not my MO. But something to that effect. As I say, you know, you'd have to like be in the moment and how you're going to react and what I actually would do, but it would be along that lines. And address it at the moment. And say, nobody does that to me. And not wait 16 years to address the issue on a public platform. When you even admit he apologized. I mean, I even talked about this in another video. The only time that I've had, you know, inappropriate touching in my entire life was a boss is when I'm working in the financial markets, and his hand, he's showing me something on the papers we're looking at, and it brushes by my breast. Well, I know this man, it was not intentional, and I think he was more embarrassed than I was. Another guy was a nightclub, and he did put his on my, you know, back waist a little bit low, but I don't even care if it's on my waist or anywhere. I'm working in these places you don't touch. So I'm not the striptease stuff, but I'm here to serve you all, to take your orders for your food and drink, and nothing else. And you treat me with respect, and I will treat you with respect. And if you establish those lines where you work from the get-go, as I say, and I always know a little, you know, I've been out there in the world for a long, long time, even before I was 19. The big bad world. I would say, you know, when we were 14, 15 years old when we moved to England. And, you know, then I started taking public transportation by myself throughout Europe and trains. And, you know, as a woman out there, as a young woman, you have to mark your territory with the men as much as the women as anybody else, particularly if you want to get into the big bad world. If not, stay home, you know, protected as a housewife, or you know, don't get married, but you know, à l'ancienne, how they used to do. But ladies, if you want to live in the modern world, yes, we need to fight for our rights, which you're not doing. You're actually degrading the rights, all of you feminists, but you also need to stop whining and moaning about just ridiculous stuff when we've got such problems of cover up of sexual and physical abuse of women and children in the courts, in the press, everywhere. I mean, I know I'm not the only person out there who really takes offense at these type of discussions. And they're making money off of it. I mean, in the next one, Megyn's talking about, she interviewed some guy about, he did something about global warming, but it was about the the fires in California, saying that it's been mismanaged. And that's why we've had so many fires. That's not to say we don't have global warming, but it wouldn't have been such an increase if it hadn't been mismanaged, was his point. And Facebook had some fact checker that doesn't check any facts. In fact, when the case came to light, they said, no, we didn't even check it. Nobody even read the guy's article. We quoted him, we misquoted him. Yeah, but that's essentially what he was. I mean, the guy was like, wait a second, you can't do that. That's not, you put that in quotations. That's not what I said. Oh yeah, but it's sort of. And you know, now this is, I guess this is the first sign that I've seen this, but we need to look into this. So I think what Facebook is doing is contracting, like the US military, in order to, you know, protect themselves for any legal liability. They contract somebody. Therefore, it's the contractor who has a legal liability for espousing misinformation, and not Facebook. Yeah, that's not going to work with me. So anyway, I got pissed off. So I guess that's my video for today. I just it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse. Every time I turn on one of these things, I'm like, you people, when is the cacophony? When is it going to get so bad that somebody wakes up and smells the coffee? I don't know. I don't know.